Welcome to Rhode Wellness, where we explore all things health and self-care. Whether you're seeking mental clarity, physical fitness, or insight from students like you, we've got you covered. Welcome back to the Rhode Wellness podcast. I am Olivia, and I'm here with Rachael today. We are going to be talking about gratitude and how it can improve well-being. Thank you for joining us today, Rachael.
You're very welcome.
So do you want to explain just what you do for the school a little bit?
Sure, absolutely. So I was brought on under the role of what's technically called Specialist Health and Wellness. I know, so fancy. And my job is pretty diverse. It falls under the larger umbrella of public health. And I service a really broad range of needs for this student population. It can involve mental health, sexual health, relationship health, stress, sleep. And it's all about bringing resources to the students that it's not just stating facts and here's a piece of paper. It's trying to make sure that they can integrate it successfully into their lives.
Yeah, it's really important and kind of what we do on the podcast too. So yes. I guess that's really good. So I hear that you have a lot of knowledge on gratitude and you're very passionate about this topic.
I am.
So what made you so versed in gratitude?
Well, I've noticed it with first myself, having gone through a lot of really unique circumstances over the course of my life and my education and then having 3 children and a family, that there's no, your life is not predictable by any means. You cannot predict anything. And things are going to come your way that you could perceive as negative or could possibly be negative or hurtful or sad or difficult or challenging, whatever it is. And I remember asking myself one day, I was in the midst of a very long kind of like situation where I was dealing with a separation, and I was like, can I choose happiness? Can I choose gratitude regardless of my circumstances, regardless of these exterior things that are happening to me? Can I still choose gratitude? Can I still see through that lens? And I chose in that moment to start really focusing on that. And I started using that as a parent. I started using that professionally. I started using that to sustain myself and to teach my kids how to practice gratitude. And a lot of people will remark like, oh, you always look at the silver lining. And sometimes you have to. Sometimes you have to when it's supporting your mental health, your physical health, your well-being. I discovered that it matters. It matters in so many big ways. So that's kind of how that started.
That's great. It sounds like you found a lot of benefits from practicing gratitude.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Can you share with us some specific factors of like how it improves well-being?
Yeah, absolutely. So practicing gratitude, in the beginning, it can feel really not fake, but can just feel like, okay, I'm not familiar with this yet. Like, I really don't know what this feels like. I don't know how this is really going to impact me. And it kind of feels like it's a fake it till you make it thing, I'm just going to practice gratitude, even though you're like, oh my God, this just happened. Like, okay, let's be grateful. Super grateful. So the benefits are in that when you look at your mental health, a lot of our mental health can be impacted positively by shifting our perspective. Perspective shifting is a really huge thing. Instead of looking at it through this one singular lens, to kind of take a step back and look at it through a different lens. So for me, gratitude is about shifting your perspective and putting on a different lens. How can I view this differently? How can I process this differently? How can I process it emotionally? How can I process it physically? So the benefits come through that perspective shifting and the impact it can have on your mental well-being. And in turn, your physical well-being followed by that.
In preparing for the podcast with the links that you shared with me, I saw a lot of crazy benefits from just taking a different perspective and practicing gratitude, like physical health,
your physical
mental health. Yeah, and one study jumped out at me. It said, a single act of thoughtful gratitude shows an immediate improvement in happiness by 10% and a reduction of depressive symptoms by 35%.
Yep.
And obviously that's not like permanent, but like that's crazy that one single deep, thoughtful act of gratitude can just show an immediate improvement in mental health.
And now, so imagine that, and it's like a one-time thing, right? Let's say, okay, I practiced this moment of gratitude once in a singular moment, and it was wonderful, and it has those benefits. Well, if you continue to practice that over time and it becomes habitual, it becomes routine, it becomes normal for you to look through that lens of gratitude, you're going to be functioning at those statistics that you just cited more continuously. So even though like that may be a moment where they measured it acutely in that direct assessment, it can continue to follow you, and as you continue to practice it and get better at it, get better at practicing gratitude and come easier to you. There's been so many things with my peers and my family where something will happen or it won't go my way, or I'll be wanting something and that didn't really turn out to be the thing that happened for me, and I'll just be like, oh, that just wasn't for me. That wasn't for me. That wasn't the way, that wasn't the direction this was supposed to go. This was okay that this happened, because now I get to take a step back and see it differently. And then, maybe weeks or months down the road, they'll be like, oh, remember when that was supposed to happen for you? Thank God it didn't. So instead of viewing that moment of like, oh goodness, this didn't go for me, didn't go the way I wanted, or something happened to me that wasn't what I wanted, you allow time to pass with holding that gratitude in your heart and your mind. You begin to realize, oh wow, this is really big. This can shift my life in huge ways.
And with other people, like you were mentioning, especially if those disappointing circumstances or whatever's going on involves other people, having gratitude can help you improve those interpersonal relationships, like the article was saying. And you can hold that disappointment but still be with those people and be in those relationships and not necessarily act out of your emotions or disappointment or anger or whatever it is that's coming up. And instead of avoiding that situation or avoiding those people and being upset about it, it's like you can accept it and move on and focus on like hope for the next thing.
I think that's what it is too, is I think so many people, when you hold on to disappointment, it seems to be the only thing in your cup. You're just holding that one thing. And so by practicing gratitude, I think you're giving yourself permission to hold more than one thing. They could be contradictory. You can be disappointed, but you can also still be grateful. And I think practicing gratitude really can free people up to hold those conflicting thoughts, even though you're like, oh, I'm super disappointed, but I'm choosing to be grateful, and I can be both. And it's okay.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to what you were saying before about when people try out gratitude or think of gratitude, it's like almost fake, like, oh, I have to be happy or I have to be grateful about everything. And it's like, no, like you can be grateful and still hold disappointment, still hold sadness.
Yes.
Like it's not being toxically optimistic about everything. That's not what gratitude is.
Yeah, it's not that toxic positivity where we're like, oh, everything's perfectly fine. So...
while your life's falling apart around you.
You're like, and standing in front of your house and just got fire. Like, this is great. This is feeling so good for me right now. This is part of my journey.
Yeah.
So I totally agree. And I think being able to hold those dichotomous feelings and thoughts is really key.
So shifting topics a little bit, I know that gratitude is a protective factor. Can you explain like what a protective factor is and how gratitude is one of these?
Sure. So protective factors, they can be environmental, they can be resources or tools that you have access to, and it can be skills that you possess. Protective factor is something where you live in a community where maybe you have access to resources and, there's ample places to go walking or be in nature and utilize those without a hindrance with transportation or worry of crime or violence or any of those types of things. So you have access to these resources in a free way that allows you to utilize them completely. And so gratitude is, again, a tool and a resource and acts as a protective factor in that you put it in your toolbox. The more you use it, the more apt you are going to be to reach into that toolbox and utilize it and do it successfully. So then it begins to act as a protective factor over time. When something happens that's stressful or you weren't expecting it or challenging or difficult or disappointing, you quickly, even without even thinking, reach into that toolbox and pull out gratitude and use that. And that is a protective factor for your mental health and your physical health. You're helping your mental health in a way that you're taking yourself out of that fight or flight response, out of that stress response. You're infusing yourself with gratitude and shifting your perspective. That's really going to help you. And then again, the connection between that mental health component and the physical health, by practicing gratitude, you are genuinely also helping your physical health. You're keeping those cortisol levels in check. You're practicing those feelings of gratitude. You're going to be more apt to go out and walk in nature, do some deep breathing, focus on your self-care. So that's kind of how they function as a protective factor. It's that you're able to utilize it as a resource and a tool.
Mm-hmm. So it's like reducing the negative effects
Yes.
of something when like a bad situation occurs.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly.
Great.
Exactly.
Gratitude, I think it said it improves like resilience.
Yes.
And so, that makes sense. It goes like hand in hand with like protective factor, like
Yep.
what that means.
Yeah, resilience and protective factors can kind of be synonymous in a lot of ways.
Yes. So how can students incorporate gratitude into their own life if they want to give it a try? Where do you recommend that they start?
So gratitude and using that lens of gratitude, it's kind of a behavior change thing. So, your human behavior, it's your habits. And so that kind of takes time to build up, a habit. You want to start going to the gym every day. And in the beginning, maybe the first few weeks, it's a little bit tough. But then once it becomes routine, it's super easy. Gratitude is very much the same thing. In the beginning, it can feel clunky. It can feel awkward. It can feel like, that fake it till you make it kind of thing. But it just takes trying in small ways, really small ways. You don't have to start so big, and that's totally okay. You can start with super small things, like you go to the cafeteria and they don't have what you thought they were going to have today, so you try something different, but you absolutely loved what you tried. Gratitude. You tried something you wouldn't have normally tried, and it was through that little bit of disappointment where you didn't get what you wanted, but then it shifted you into a different direction, and you practice gratitude in that moment and kind of sit back in that moment and be like, I'm going to reflect and kind of be grateful. That didn't turn out exactly how I wanted. I wanted this. I did not get that. And I got something else, but it turns out I discovered something about myself. I discovered I liked a new food. You can start with super small things, really small ways. And that's how gratitude is going to start to infuse itself in your life. And you're going to start to be able to use it in bigger ways.
That's great. So it's like reflecting in a sense and like taking a step back and just seeing like the big picture almost.
Absolutely. Yeah, the gratitude, that's so definitely it. I work in a public health course here, and that's one of the things I emphasize all the time is that zoomed out lens, that big picture perspective, trying to take that big picture into consideration. That's just a really big thing that can be a tool you carry throughout the rest of your life as you go out into your career as a professional. Maybe you choose to have a family or get married, or any number of things can be these big changes in your life, and it's a tool that you can carry with you through all of that. Because unfortunately, like I hate to say this, life doesn't always get easier. I think obviously being in school is hard and challenging in its own way. And you think, oh, I'm going to go out there and be an adult and have a professional career. I'm going to make money and there'll be less things to think about or worry about. But then life has this fun way of being like, hey, whatever, you graduated from that level of challenges. Now you're into like different levels of challenges. So that's why I emphasize it's important to carry with you as a tool.
And it's interesting, for reference, I'm like a psychology major. We learned about the negativity effect, which is like the idea that people have the tendency to focus on the impact of negative events over positive events. And even if you think about this, oftentimes the most interesting subjects we study are negative events in history, or we love true crime and that type of thing.
I'm just as guilty of that. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Or like, if you look back on your last week, you could probably think of, oh yeah, I remember that this bad thing happened, and that's kind of what I remember to define that week. Or the small little things that happened, and that's just naturally what the brain gravitates towards. And so, like you said, gratitude, it kind of shifts that, and it's a way that you make an intentional choice to change that behavior and focus on positive things.
Yeah, and your view, change that view. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yep, absolutely. Even this past week, my daughter ended up staying home from something. She was supposed to go somewhere. We ended up chatting and have a great conversation. So like she was disappointed, but she was like, I'm really glad I got to have this time with you instead. This was actually better. So like it's just that shift and changing your lens and your view instead of looking back and like, oh, I didn't get to do this week. The memory becomes something different. something positive.
And who doesn't want to live a positive life?
Yes.
So.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's not to say that everything, like you said, there's no toxic positivity. You can, if you try and shift your lens, see things, especially those challenging, difficult, hard moments from a different angle that allow you to appreciate it and have that gratitude.
Yes. And then just to end it off, do you have any practical tips of how people can practice gratitude? I know for some people it's like having a gratitude journal or taking 5 minutes or something like that.
I think something is that I always emphasize with everyone I talk to, especially as when I work with my peer health educators and I work with the students, is you have to find what works for you. So there's no one thing I can recommend for any person. Maybe some people, like my oldest daughter, for example, I was said, why don't you do this type of journal? She was like, I'll lose the journal and I won't remember to write in it. But if I start a journal on my phone and like go into notes, I'll remember to do it and I won't lose it. I was like, okay, perfect. So you take that concept and you just adjust it accordingly to what your needs are. Same thing with everyone else when it comes to practicing gratitude. Find what works for you. How to start and how it works for you, and then pay attention to what works for you. If you do something and you're like, I'm going to practice gratitude today, I'm going to try A, B, and C. And then you're like, you know what, A and B really didn't work for me, but C was great. And that really clicked with me. Stick with that. And you know you best. And that's my greatest advice is you're the best expert on yourself and what works for you. And drop into that, check in with that and what feels right.
Thank you for joining us today, Rachel. This was a really great conversation.
Thank you. I loved being here.
Before we wrap up, a quick reminder that all information shared in today's podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. Thank you for listening to another episode of Rhody Wellness. If you like what you heard today, tune in every Tuesday on all podcast platforms for more. If you want to stay up to date on events and healthcare tips, please follow us at URI Health Promotions on Instagram. And if you have any ideas for future podcast episodes or more social media content that you'd like to see, please feel free to DM us or email us. Until next time, take care and stay healthy.